Welcome to It Happened in Grand Prairie, your history show about our city of Grand Prairie, Texas, and some of the people that have made that history. And today, on this magic day of January the 24th, 2007, we're bringing you our history tape number 590. And it is such a splendid opportunity to feature the First Presbyterian Church of Grand Prairie, Texas, because they're going to have an anniversary, a birthday, a party, and a celebration, it seems, all year long. And we have two wonderful guests from the First Presbyterian Church. First of all, the ranking person as far as the Reverend is concerned, Reverend Jim Reiners. We're so pleased to have you on the set today.
Thank you. Good morning.
But one of the longer running members of the First Presbyterian Church and one of the chairs of the great historical group that is going to celebrate and planning this celebration, Janine Bird, we're so glad to have you with us, my dear.
Thank you, and good morning to you.
Yes, and a very famous retired teacher, but not retired too much, are you, Janine?
Oh, no.
You're supposed to be retired from teaching, but you still teach in other areas.
You bet.
We're just so glad to have you all with us. And isn't it exciting that you're going to celebrate the 100th?
This is one of the most exciting things I've experienced.
Yes.
Going back in our memory bank and thinking of those that went before us that really paved the way for where we are today.
That's wonderful. I know that in my research in history, I became better acquainted with the First Presbyterian Church when I researched the marker for the Dr. Copeland Home Museum.
Right.
And when I went to the Red R and became fully acquainted with a lady that was second to none, and Martha Richardson was such a, I guess, an advocate for the First Presbyterian Church. She almost made me a Presbyterian having our prayer breakfast there. So I really got acquainted with it. And then, of course, Mr. Jim, when he's been here, I've worked with you all in the building of the humanity homes, and and that was an exciting thing. But now, this celebration, would you name the committee for me? Let us know who all of the committee is that's in charge of all this good business. And why don't you hold that up and show off your beautiful invitation?
This is our centennial anniversary invitation, and it's going to be held, the first event is February the 25th.
All right.
And be sure and make note of the time because we're kind of expanding the worship service. We're going to begin at 10:30 rather than 11.
Yes.
And we've invited former ministers and people from near and far that have had any touch with our church, and we expect to have really an exciting day. We'll have a catered dinner following that, but we're going to expand our activities throughout the whole year and just have a year of celebration.
Isn't that wonderful?
But getting back to the Centennial Committee, Jane Mason is actually our chair. What an organizer, and she really keeps us on our toes. Doug Bryan, J.C. Bryan, Dolly Hall, Carol Hulla, Chase Jackson, Candace Ramsey, and Pat Stitt make up our committee, along with Jim. He's
I kind of
our
pop in and out when they need me.
He's the supervisor,
You
right?
bet.
Well, I noticed that Chase Jackson is on there. I am so pleased that he's made an elder in your church and a young person like that, and he just happens to be Terry Jackson and Mike Jackson's son. And of course, I had a close association with them. I was real thrilled to see that you had a young person on there that can continue on with this wonderful work.
Well, we have several young people that are session members now, and they have the energy and vision that some of us are kind of retiring from. So we're happy to have them on there. And Chase is just involved in many projects there at the church, and we'll tell you about another one as we go through our activities today.
And J.C. Bryan, promised me, as a matter of fact, he got in touch with all of you all for me. I serve on another committee with JC, and he said, oh, I want to be there. And then he gets majestic and goes to Austin and appears before the legislature and doesn't get back. So he sent Mr. Jim as a substitute. And I'm so glad we have the head honcho as a sub, aren't you?
You bet.
Great. Brother Jim, I'd like for you to just let everyone know how exciting it is to be the minister when you just happen to fall into the 100-year celebration.
It is very exciting. I've been with the church now for 5 years.
Yes.
It's hard to believe. And this is really a highlight, not only of this year, but my entire time with them, to take some time to look back at our history and look at that foundation that all of our that has really made the church what it is today, and not only to do that, but also to give us some new excitement, some new energy to move into hopefully our next 100 years. I hope that First Presbyterian Church can keep going for the glory of God another 100 years after this year.
Now, as long as you've been a minister, when you went into a church, have you ever had the opportunity to celebrate a centennial like
I
this
have
before?
not. This is the first one.
Now, isn't that exciting?
Yes,
Because
it is.
that really did bring you to the point where you said, I've got to check up on the history of this church. Here we are having this big celebration, and that made you do some homework, didn't it?
That's right. And it's fascinating to have some of our older members even walk me through the sanctuary and look at our stained glass windows that are all given in memory of former members, and tell me this person was the first mayor and this person was a school teacher, and to learn about all of the important people from Grand Prairie that have been such an important part of the life of the church and the life of the city.
There's a history on every one of those windows,
That's right.
as well as
The pews in the church,
pews in the church
pulpit,
are named. And, I just think all of that's so exciting, and you're bringing it forth. And some of the illustrious members of your church in the past that have been so key and so important in the city of Grand Prairie,
Right.
Texas.
And it's so important to have an opportunity like this to help our children, to help our younger members, our newer members connect with the history of the church and realize what a grand history we have had.
All right, I'm going to have to get back to Janine. Janine, what kind of research have you done to prepare yourself for this? Or does each member have a different assignment, or do you just work as a cloistered group?
We all have assignments.
Oh, you do?
That we...
You're a specialist in.
Yes, and sometimes we overlap when we see there needs to be help in a certain area. I've enjoyed searching out some of the former pastors of our church, and we have tried to do, we're doing down our hallway, we have framed pictures of all the former pastors that we could locate information for, and we're still searching. We've got space to add to. We also are looking at some of the young people that grew up in the church that have gone into full-time ministry.
How wonderful.
Maybe as a minister. I know that the Danhoff family has been here for a long time, and one of his daughters has been a missionary. Also, we're going to do sections by decades, and we're trying to identify what actually happened during that specific time, documenting with pictures and biographies and so forth.
Well, you certainly have a wonderful photographer there in your congregation, because Doug Bryan is second to none as a photographer. And don't you know that he can come up with some exciting ideas and presentations for you?
Well, we actually recruited Doug,
Yeah.
but he came willingly.
Yeah.
And one of the first projects that we did was our only fundraiser that we're going to have to try to help support the financial needs of this celebration.
All right.
And Doug developed a calendar, and we took various organizations of the church and presented those for each month of the year.
The 12 months.
Like the children's group, our prime timer group, There was from our Christmas pageants around Christmas and so forth. And our calendars are $10 and they're a hot item.
Ooh,
Everybody
yeah.
is wanting to have one of those. One of the other things Doug is going to do is we're putting together a memory book. And we were going to try to have it ready February the 25th. And then with some suggestions from others, they thought it might be a good idea to wait and have it at the end of the year after we have gone through all of these other activities that we have planned
Oh, great.
for the year. And I've been loving writing all these stories about organizations. Way back in the 70s, we had a tutoring program at our church, and we went out to the schools and gathered up the kids, and the school provided us with books and so forth. And our church, through the years, has had a commitment to work with the community, and that is one of the areas that I thought was just a wonderful project. We had the nutrition center at our
Yes.
church for about 20 years with under Jimmy Reed's leadership.
Yes.
And from that came Meals on Wheels, and they began delivering the food at our church, and we would distribute it to all the other areas. But Boy Scouts, I found out my grandfather was actually the first Boy Scout leader back, and I believe it was 1915. And the troop disbanded after a little while, and it was reorganized in the 40s. And it was Troop 515, and it was Hill Reed was one of the leaders back at that time, and it served our church well for many years.
Yes. That's so wonderful, because I remember when Jimmy Reed was here, and when you all did not charge anything for them to come in and bring the county program in here for that nutrition center, and it was well known that we were so thankful that finally the city and other entities relieved your church of that, because that was a huge and a growing responsibility. It grew every year from just a few until Jimmy Reed was almost overwhelmed with all of the things that were happening. So you really have been involved in the community. I didn't know about your scout program, and that's exciting, isn't it?
Oh, it was an outstanding scout troop.
Well, you've just done so many other things in the community. Your Habitat for Humanity that you've added to that. There have been other things that you've done in the community since that time that is really outstanding.
And you've been a really big supporter of our arts and crafts show that we have annually. You're about our first customer that comes in.
I have to get there early to get all of the wonderful peanut butter and cookies, and also the wonderful candies that you all make, because Martha used to save that for me, and now I have to come on my own.
Well, the bids that you make it a challenge for anybody else that wants to get a particular item. So in so many ways you have contributed to the support of our church. You were there for our 50th anniversary for our church sanctuary, and always there for the arts and craft. And as much as you do for us, I know you do for others in the community as well, because
Well,
we know you.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the most exciting things has been that I was able to forecast to Martha that your 100th was coming up, and I said, now Martha, I'm really looking forward to what y'all are going to do on your 100th. And this was about 2 years before she passed away. And so finally, now I have as my appointee to the Historical Commission Arvin Brown, who is the member of your church, and who
Yes.
is now the chairman of the Historical Commission for all of the things that
Wonderful.
they're doing at the city. But he's also getting to be there when you're having your 100th anniversary, and I thought that was really wonderful. And y'all have provided many wonderful people from your congregation in the city doing many other things, because there's a lot of things going on other than just history. It surprises us, but just like the Commission on Aging, it is a wonderful work, and thank you for the contribution that you've made to that in the past. And I know that you still have people that are coming from your church in your area that come to the Nutrition Center, and it's a real great work. Now, Mr. Jim, what are you going to do? Are you going to be the main honcho speaker that day, or are you into any of that, or is the committee planning all of the speeches and the program?
On the 25th?
Yes.
We're still working on planning that, and we're inviting former ministers to come back
Oh, how
and participate
wonderful.
in the worship service. We've heard from a couple of them, so I'm hoping that, and I'm interested to see, since we're starting at 10 o'clock,
10:30.
10:30, to see if Presbyterians can actually
Yeah.
worship for 2 hours
Yes.
without a break in there somewhere.
can do
but,
it. They can do
they
it.
can. But I'm hoping that we can have some time for each of the ministers to not only participate in the worship service itself, but have a few minutes where they can share some of their memories
And
of when they
reflect.
were pastoring the church.
How wonderful.
We are also, can I talk about honoring the members who have been there for 50 years or more?
Yeah, sure.
That's
I
going to
didn't
be.
know. They didn't tell me about
I
that.
probably
Oh.
shouldn't have.
Oh, good. You are going to have a spotlight.
We
on
are
some
we are
special
going to have
people.
a special time in the worship service when we can honor our longer term members
Yes.
and recognize their participation in the church. So I've probably ruined the secret for you. But,
Oh, that's
and of course music and everything else that goes with a worship service. So it
Yes.
should be a wonderful morning.
And who will you have in charge of the music? Your director?
We have lost our choir director last year, so our organist, Carrie Condre, is working with a couple of our newer members
How wonderful.
to lead the choir while we continue to search for a new choir director. And I might put a plug in. If anybody would like to be the choir director of our church, give us a call, because we're
Yes.
looking for one.
Yes, and we can work them into this 100th celebration very well, couldn't
Mhm.
we? Oh, that is really great.
Jim. You ought to share also all those other things that are going to be happening.
Can we talk
throughout
about
the year.
some of the other activities?
Yes, let's do that.
One of the other activities that I'm really looking forward to is our memorial garden. We've had a garden on the church property for many years, and it has seen better days. And so one of the projects we have is to rehabilitate our garden, and we've been selling memorial bricks so we can make a walkway through the garden and build some new structures and put in some new trees and some flowers and beautify it. So in May we're going to have a dedication of our memorial garden, and we'll have a worship service outside to dedicate it, and we're hoping the weather will be good for that.
We need to get in touch with Tammy Chan, who's the honcho of the city over beautification, and let her offer some help and
That would be
and
wonderful.
doing this, and we must get in touch with her, because then she can nominate you for an award at the state level. First Baptist last year won Keep Texas Beautiful for a wonderful work that they were doing, and so let's work on that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, yes, and another one of your activities.
Then in August, we are going to be having an old-fashioned hymn sing, and we're still working on the plans for that, but we're going to get out the old hymn books and sing some of the old classic church hymns, and I think we're also having an ice cream social and some other hot dogs and ice cream for that day, and I think we're going to ask some of the members to dress up in old costumes and clothing from the early days of the church, and
Oh, that
with the
sounds
hats and the
really-
gloves and the dresses and everything. And then the other event we have in November is a celebration of All Saints' Day.
Oh,
And
that's what's
I
going to happen
think
that
that
day.
will be a time when we can remember all of our church members who have passed on,
Yes.
and take some time to honor their memory, and take some time to remember the contributions they've made to the church through their lives and through their faith.
That just doesn't that sound wonderful?
It is.
Wrapping up a good year, isn't it?
Absolutely wonderful.
Well, of all of those, which is your favorite, and which one are you assigned to?
Well, my assignment has been to try to reach some of the people that have been there through the years, and making contacts to try to get them there and get the pictures. And I've been working with the Dallas News. We're going to have Libby Clausen is going to do a story about our 100th anniversary, I think in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
And we've got information in the paper weekly reminding everybody that the 100th anniversary is near.
Yes.
So we're trying to keep it out and about so that everybody will remember and be there on that special day.
That's wonderful. Now, do you think that there's any chance that you're going to have an overflowing crowd because you're going to have a wonderful service, and then I believe you're having a lunch or something afterward?
We are.
I think
And
we've
this is by
sent out,
invitation and RSVP and all that kind of good
Mhm.
stuff.
how many invitations have we sent
300.
out? 300 invitations
sent out
we've sent out, all
300.
over the country to former members and friends of the church.
Who's in charge of all of this big food happening?
I believe Debbie Yater is the chairperson of the fellowship committee, and she's working with us. In fact, we have a meeting tonight to make plans for all the details and specifics of what's going on, but there's going to have to be, we're going to have to get additional tables and chairs and to accommodate all the people that we hope will be there that Sunday.
Oh, that is wonderful. Now, what are we going to do about these other two happenings? Are you going to send out separate flyers or invitations to all of those?
We will have information, a mail out every time these are coming about so that everybody will be. And I know some of the older members have specified about how exciting it is because they still have those old hats and gloves and stuff, and they're looking to find the ones that
they wore at that time?
That's right.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, are we going to have an opportunity to know in advance some of the older members, in other words, who has been at the First Presbyterian Church the longest as a member? Are you
I'm sure we
researching
probably, yes, I think our chairman has
that?
really gone through the records and so forth. And to my knowledge, Marie Stuffelbeam is probably the longest living member.
Yes.
And
she's on Southwest 3rd, isn't
yes,
Uh-huh.
she is. And she was at the 50th celebration of the sanctuary, but I don't believe she'll be able to be there. But there are a few of us in the running for being there behind Marie.
Yes. And are going to tell us who some of those are?
I found the other day my little baptismal. Jim spoke about the importance of our records and stuff
Yes.
in church Sunday, and I became a member in 1947.
Yes.
And the Reverend Danhoff was our minister
At that time?
then. And J.C. Bryant's family came shortly after that, in the around 48, 49, something like that. And I know that Arvin has been around for a long time, but
That's as near as we can get to the nitty gritty.
yeah, Jane hasn't shown me the official list.
Oh, she has. Oh, she's keeping that a secret, I guess.
So don't tell her that I've ruined the secret for you.
Okay.
So.
We won't tell
Act
anybody.
surprised
I
on February
will.
25th.
Jane will know when the word gets out. I'm interested in your Bible school. Is there some person that's going to do anything particular? Are you disbanding Bible school that day, or are you going to have your Bible
Like
classes?
we call it Sunday school.
Yes,
I don't think we even talked about that yet, have we?
No, I don't think so. They usually meet at 9:30,
yes.
and so thanks for reminding us. We'll have to make a note to check out that detail.
What's going to be happening to the Bible school students? Do you have a lot of young people in your Bible school now?
Not as many as we'd like to have,
Right.
but we have.
We've had we kind of have these large groups that move through the Sunday school program,
Yes,
and we've had quite a few just recently graduate from high school. So,
Are
we-
they having any kind of part in the celebration? In other words, that's what I'm trying to
Mhm.
get at. Are your boys and girls in any way involved in the celebration, or is this mostly an adult happening?
I think since there are several activities, especially like the garden activity and everything,
Uh-huh.
will be really exciting for them.
right, and we're hoping to get the young people involved in the actual working in the garden and doing some of the planting and the decorating. And
All right. Well, we're down to about 27 minutes, and he said we could go to 31, but I want, first of all, Brother Jim, for you to look out into your camera, and I want you to give a pastoral invitation to something that's happening to the First Presbyterian Church. It's never happened before. It'll never happen again. I want you to really invite those that would like to come and make a mark on the community. This is your opportunity.
thank you. In February of 1907, First Presbyterian Church was chartered as a church here in Grand Prairie, and we are celebrating our centennial this year. We're having a worship service on February 25th of this year at 10:30 a.m., and we would like as many people as possible to come and celebrate with us, to worship with us, to take time to remember the many people who have been an active part of both our church and of the community of Grand Prairie, and do all of this for the glory of God. So we hope that you will come and join us for that day and that time.
And you're next, and if you need any help, you want people to buy bricks, you want people to buy calendars or anything to help us raise funds for all of these good things, I'd like for you to invite people to help in that direction, and then to invite them to come.
First of all, we want you there.
In your camera.
We want you to mark your calendars for February the 25th and be there with us. The deadline, I believe, for the bricks have passed, but I think it's going to be one of the just a delightful way to remember a lot of I did bricks for grandparents, mother, daddy, Aunt Winnie, all my uncles and aunts that were that loved that church as much as I do. And the calendars, like I say, is
They're gone?
No, we're going to continue printing calendars, and we'll make sure you have one.
Oh, great.
So that is our major fundraiser. But looking back at our history and the memories has just been wonderful. I was reading where they first met at the First Methodist Church for a while, then moved into a little building with a tin roof and a grass floor, and then to the Woodsman's Hall before we actually got into our little church. They met down where the old White's cafeteria used to be.
Yes.
But we've come a long way from those 19 charter members that had a vision for our church.
Well, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. You've brought back wonderful memories for me, and it's going to be exciting to help celebrate. And I'm hoping to bring a proclamation from the City Council for a wonderful salute to you all for this great celebration. And thank you all for coming. It was just delightful to help you pre-celebrate and get ready for all of the things. And we won't have to thank Mr. Don Johnson for getting us through all of this. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do, and that we document it correctly. And thank you for watching our show.